Hello everybody, welcome to this video. Today I'm going to talk about something that can be very powerful if one wants to master one's own mind, and that is the power of meaning. And the principle that I'm going to work with is that life is without meaning, that we are all free to create whatever meaning that suits us. And meaning is something that the mind creates. And I'll talk about two different levels of mind. And the level that creates meaning is our individual human mind, the mind that comments on everything, that interprets our experience. Then I'll also talk about our unity consciousness mind, the mind that is the wholeness of life that works in unity, the one without the other. So this is our non-dual mind. And our separate human mind, that is our dual mind. And these are very different. From our non-dual mind, we look at wholeness. We look at one without the other. So there are no perspectives within this mind. There are no interpretations, because to have an opinion, an interpretation, or a perspective, one has to look from outside. If we look at these figures here, we see the I, that is our true self, the unity consciousness. There are no perspectives there because there's only one thing that goes on. From this level, we are without meaning because meaning is something that is created about something else. We need relationships to talk about interpretation, meaning, and so on. So if we look at the other picture, the other figure, this one, we can see that there is something that watches another, and this something that watches another can have their own opinions, their own interpretation, and other things. So all of these things is created from duality because we need a relationship to create these things. What we can see from these figures is that in reality, from our true self, there are no meanings, that all of these things are created from our separate self. Good, bad, and other labels, they are not fundamental to reality. Reality just is. But then we color our own separate self's reality with all of these labels that we give to reality. And since we have the opportunity of choosing our own meaning, we can choose to give everything that goes on a positive meaning. And this is an immense power because oftentimes we live in a sort of reality where we have our preferences, what we want, what we don't want, the good, bad, things are wrong, and so on. But these are all artificial. These are not inherent to reality. Reality just is, where we can start to let go of what we think is wrong, what we think is bad, is when we start to let go of our self-definition, our own form or our own structure of identity. And this structure is a thing that we create in our reality. So we have to then defend this structure. And this egoic structure can be what kind of relationships we have, what kind of job we have, what kind of status we have, how we look, and so on. And reality is not stagnant. Reality is a verb. It is only flowing. So the only constant that we actually have is change. And if we identify with this structure, with this form, when the process of life is starting to chip away on this form and starting to change this form, we will interpret this as bad because we will feel like things are being removed from us, that we will be destroyed by this change. So we have to start to let go of our form and be formless because we do not want to live in the resistance of life where we always have to defend this form and say that everything that goes against this form is bad, because this maintenance of this form is a resistance. So then we start to block the flow of life because we are only serving this form. And this form might not be aligned with how life works, with the flow of life, with the verb of life. So instead of being this particle having a life, we can be the wave that is life, because we are not separate from life. That is the illusion that we have from the separate human mind. And if we start to let go of this form, we can start to see that we can give whatever meaning that suits our own happiness. The problem that we have when we live in this resistance and this defense of this artificial form is when we see everything from a very limited perception, from a very small context where we do not see how everything works together. And what we say are bad is bad from a very limited perspective. But if we expand our perspective, if we expand the context of how reality is unfolding, we will see that what's bad might be good. And an example can be if somebody loses their job, this might be a devastation, and it might be a great dent to this form the person identify with. But what can happen if somebody loses their job is they get an opportunity to get a new job perhaps, and this new job might be better suited for this person than the old job. This new job might have a greater opportunity where the person can self-express, there might be better colleagues and so on. So this loss of a job might be extremely beneficial for this person. And this is something that I think a lot of people will also be conscious of, that some of their greatest traumas eventually will be their greatest gift when they have processed the trauma, when they have integrated the trauma, and where they have grown from this trauma to where they become greater, stronger, more resilient and expanded people. If we just expand our perspectives and we expand the context of the unfoldment of life, the boundary between what is good and what is bad starts to blur. Because eventually what we first thought of as bad, if we expand our context, we can see that it was really beneficial and good. So here, good and bad starts to blur together, and we can see that they are not inherent to our own experience. A good way in how we can picture this is that if we don't see the perfection of the unfoldment of life, we are too close to the picture. So the greater perspective we have, the greater context we have of what's going on, the more harmony, the more beauty we will perceive. And we usually just look at these tiny pieces of the picture, but reality needs every color. It needs every brushstroke to create this perfect piece of art that is the multidimensional canvas of life. It needs all these dark brushstrokes. It needs everything to create the balance of the wholeness. We need to let go of our own limited perspectives and start to trust that everything unfolds in the way it should be, in the way that is most natural and the way that is most beneficial for the wholeness. And we need to be humble and know that our own separate human mind cannot know the whole picture. It cannot know why everything happens. And we can start to trust something that is greater than our own interpretation, because we do not know the whole picture. If we start to live this way, we start to trust that the universe has our back, that the universe is inherently beautiful, peaceful, and loving. So what we can do is that we can start to align life to the unity consciousness, the true I that is isness. Because one without the other have no perspectives of itself. There's completeness, because we need to have separation, we need to have duality, to have this interpretation, to have the opinions. And we can see the perfection of what is, at the same time that we have our ability to interpret life from the separate self's point of view. And when we see from this dual perspectives, we can start to align our separate self and give everything that we perceive, we can give it a positive meaning. We can give it a life-affirming meaning. We can see that whatever goes on, eventually all will harmonize, all will balance. And then we end our own suffering, because we end our own separation from the natural unfoldment of life. And we let go of our resistance. We let go of our suffering and live in faith, or we live in trust, because That is to just align oneself to the natural unfoldment of what is. So from our separate self, the mind that comments and has opinions, that mind can start to comment in a way that is infused with gratitude, appreciation, harmony, and so on. This is also a way where we can create a better experience in our outer reality. Because as I've talked about in earlier videos, I've said that our outer world is a reflection and a mirror to our inner world. So if we clean up our inner world, that will be reflected in our outer world, because these different minds are really one. They are just projected from different aspects of our being. There are a lot of stuff that we can do just by changing the way we give meaning to everything. And this is the opportunity and this is the gift that we all have. So to end this video, I want to invite everybody to take a look at how they ascribe meaning to their experience and see if they can give it a more positive, uplifting meaning and see how their life can change as a result. And that was all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.